The rescue station was unusually quiet that morning, but the silence did not last long. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw two tiny abandoned kittens wrapped in an old towel near the corner of the hallway. One volunteer sighed and told me they had originally found two babies in the apartment stairwell the night before, but when they returned the next morning, only one was left alive. Nobody knew what happened to the other kitten. Maybe it wandered away, maybe it was taken by another animal, or maybe it simply didn't survive the cold night. The surviving kitten looked weak and sickly, curling itself into a tiny, trembling ball as if it was trying to disappear from the world. At the same time, the rescue center was already overflowing with injured animals. Every cage held another heartbreaking story. Some had been abandoned, some hit by cars, some abused so badly they no longer trusted humans. Yet, despite the exhaustion, the volunteers continued moving from one cage to another without stopping. One of the older women at the shelter had recently suffered heart problems from stress and overwork. She smiled weakly while checking medicine bottles and cleaning feeding bowls. Even then, she still worried more about the animals than herself. She explained that the shelter hoped to move to a better location soon because the current place was too muddy and difficult to clean. Many followers online had suggested paving the ground with cement to make things safer and cleaner for the animals, but the cost was simply too high. Even basic food and medicine already consumed almost everything they had. As we walked deeper into the shelter, I saw 3 abandoned border collie puppies lying together under warm blankets. One of them looked especially weak, barely lifting its head. The volunteer gently stroked the puppy and whispered that they were doing everything possible to save him. Nearby, a golden retriever puppy rested quietly after several days of treatment. A mother and daughter had brought him to the shelter after finding him abandoned and sick. Despite the pain, the little dog still wagged his tail whenever someone approached. The next cage held a cat that had been hit by a car. One of its front legs was injured badly and its body was covered with scrapes. The volunteers had to hand feed it because it refused to eat on its own. Every meal took patience and time. Still, the cat slowly began responding to treatment. Then I noticed another white cat resting under a heating lamp. Its condition had once been horrifying. Someone believed it had suffered severe abuse before being rescued. One eye had protruded from the socket, and its mouth had been infected so badly that foul-smelling fluid constantly leaked out. The shelter staff told me that when the cat first arrived, it could not move or eat at all. After days of treatment and surgery, it survived, though it permanently lost one eye. Even so, the volunteers celebrated every tiny improvement because survival itself had become a miracle. Not far away, another grey cat had arrived just the previous night after being struck by a car. Its breathing was weak, and it remained connected to fluids while the veterinarians monitored its condition closely. There was also another injured cat nearby suffering from severe facial injuries. None of them understood why such small and innocent creatures had to endure so much pain simply to stay alive. But among all the sadness, there were moments of hope too. One dog named Bubai had once arrived at the shelter in terrible condition. His entire body had been covered in severe skin disease. Whenever he shook himself, blood and infected fluid would splatter everywhere. His fur had fallen out in patches, and his skin looked raw and painful. At first, nobody knew if he would survive. Yet, after weeks of medicine, careful cleaning, and endless patience, Bubai slowly recovered. Now he looked completely different. His fur had finally grown back, his wounds had healed, and his bright eyes followed people around the room with excitement. He ran toward us happily, wagging his tail so hard his whole body shook. The volunteers laughed as they called his name. Tomorrow Bubai would finally leave the hospital area because he had recovered enough to go home or possibly find adoption. Watching him play felt almost unreal compared to the broken animal he used to be. That is what rescue work truly looks like. It is not glamorous. It is sleepless nights, endless cleaning, expensive medicine, emotional exhaustion, and constantly wondering whether an animal will survive until morning. It is carrying abandoned kittens from stairwells, feeding injured cats by hand, comforting terrified dogs that no longer trust humans, and fighting for lives that many people have already given up on. Some animals survive, some do not, but every single one of them deserves someone to try. And inside that crowded rescue station, despite all the suffering, there was still something stronger than despair. Hope quietly lived in every clean bandage, every bowl of food, every medicine bottle, every warm blanket, and every volunteer who refused to stop caring. Because sometimes saving a life does not happen in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it happens little by little, day after day, simply because someone chose not to give up.